Live for yourself. That's what modern culture tells you. But here's what that advice gets wrong. It treats your life as something that ends with you. The Buddha saw it differently. Every choice you make ripples outward, into the people you love, into the world they carry forward. Your life doesn't finish when you do. The Buddha called this karma, not punishment, not reward, but a living thread connecting who you are to everything that comes after. Today, I'll show you how understanding that one truth can quietly change the way you live every single day. About 2,500 years ago, in a small kingdom in northern India, there lived a young prince. His name was Siddhartha. Inside the palace walls, everything was beautiful. Flowers were always in bloom. Music floated through the air. Food was never in short supply. There were no aging faces, no sick bodies, no one who had died. Or rather, to be precise, everything like that had been carefully kept out of his sight. A breeze moved softly through the trees. Beyond the palace walls, ordinary life went on as it always did. Laughter drifted in, the calls of street vendors, and perhaps from somewhere far away, the faint sound of someone weeping. On one particular day, Siddhartha rode his horse out through the palace gates. And there, by the side of the road, he saw something he had no word for. A man so bent with age that his spine had curved like a bow, his hands trembling as he reached for a wall to steady himself. Siddhartha turned to his attendant and asked, in genuine bewilderment, what had happened to this person. The attendant was silent for a moment before answering, "My lord, this is simply what becomes of us all." That answer did not leave him. He returned to the palace, to the flowers and the music, but something had shifted. The way a crack, once seen in a wall, cannot be unseen. In the days that followed, he rode out again, and each time the road offered him something new. A man ravaged by illness, a body being carried to the cremation ground, and finally a wandering ascetic with nothing but a robe and a begging bowl, yet moving through the world with a stillness that Siddhartha could not explain. The world outside the palace was nothing like the world within. At the side of the road stood an old man. His back was deeply bent, and he moved with a walking stick, each step a quiet struggle. Siddhartha turned to his attendant. "Why does that man look that way?" The attendant answered gently, "My lord, he is old. Every person, if they live long enough, will come to look that way. You, me, no one is exempt." Siddhartha was quiet for a long moment. "Even I will become that one day." The words settled into him slowly like a stone sinking through still water. On another day he rode out again. This time he saw someone crouched at the roadside, body burning with fever, face twisted in pain, moaning softly. What happened to that person? "My lord, they are sick. No one, however healthy they may seem, can escape illness. It can come for any of us, at any time." Again Siddhartha fell silent. Then came a third time. A small group of people were carrying something, a stretcher of sorts, and on it lay a figure who did not move. Those around it wept openly. "Attendant, why doesn't that person move?" "My lord, they have died. Their life has ended. Every person who is born will one day meet death." Siddhartha stood there for a long time, unable to move. Old age, illness, death, these were not things that existed far away in some other person's life. The seeds of all three were already inside him. For the very first time, he saw that clearly. Then came a fourth journey beyond the gates. Siddhartha crossed paths with a solitary man, wearing simple, worn robes, holding a small bowl, walking in unhurried silence, and yet his face held something. Even having seen old age, illness, and death, there was a quiet light in his expression, something calm, something that had passed through suffering and arrived at peace. "Who is that man?" "My lord, he is a wandering monk. He walks a path seeking to be freed from the suffering of this world." Siddhartha could not take his eyes off him. "This person has seen what I have seen, and yet he stands there like that. What does he see that I don't? What does he know?" That night Siddhartha left the palace. He left behind his beloved wife, his newborn child, a life of comfort and wealth. He left it all. It was not an impulsive act. He had seen old age and illness and death, and then a man who walked quietly through it all. Those 4 encounters had worked on him, slowly, surely, changing something deep within. He became a monk. He stepped out into the world carrying one question: what is suffering truly, and can a person ever be free of it? This story is known as the Four Gates. Through 4 gates he passed, and through each one he saw something new. What he witnessed there became the headwaters of the river we call Buddhism. For years he walked that river to its source, sleeping under open skies, eating whatever was placed in his bowl, sitting in stillness so deep that the birds are said to have nested in his hair. There were mornings, it is told, when he was so hungry he could count his own ribs with his fingers, and evenings when he could not remember what warmth felt like. He had left everything, and for a long time he found nothing. What Siddhartha encountered beyond the gates was reality, aging, illness, death. But perhaps what truly shook him was not those things themselves. What shattered him at the deepest level may have been this: I never knew. Inside the palace, old age and illness and death had all been hidden, so to him, they had simply not existed. But the moment he stepped outside, they appeared, not as new arrivals, but as things that had always been there from the very beginning. They hadn't been hidden, he simply hadn't been able to see them. This is what Buddhism calls avidya, unawareness, not knowing, not seeing. Now, before we go further, I'd like to pause and ask you something. When you hear the phrase clearing your karma, what image comes to mind? Punishment for past wrongs? What goes around comes around? Many people carry that understanding. But Buddhism means something a little different. Karma simply means action. What you do with your body, what you say with your words, what you hold in your mind. Each of those is karma. And karma doesn't bring punishment. It creates conditions. Those conditions layer upon each other and give rise to the moment you're standing in right now. Let me try to untangle one thread of suffering here. Do we suffer because hard things happen to us? Because we grow old, fall sick, lose people we love? Is it the events themselves that cause pain? Buddhism offers a slightly different view. We suffer because somewhere inside us, we believe these things shouldn't happen. We carry a fixed image of how things should be, how we should be, how the world should be, and when reality doesn't match that image, suffering appears in the gap. Growing old doesn't hurt us. Refusing to grow old hurts us. The clenched belief that says this shouldn't be happening, that is the source of suffering. So then, what does it mean to clear your karma? It doesn't mean being punished for past mistakes. It means turning your eyes right now toward the karma you are creating in this moment. It means asking, what am I choosing right now? Siddhartha didn't leave the palace to escape. He left to see, to face what had been kept from him. That was the meaning of his departure. And there's one more thing. The phrase clearing karma carries within it a quiet promise. You can begin again, from here. What's already been done cannot be undone. But the karma you create from this moment forward, that can change, starting now. That is Buddhism's quiet form of hope. If you're someone who believes you can no longer change, please hear this. In Buddhist understanding, there is no fixed, unchanging self. Who you are right now is the shape that has emerged from countless choices, from the people and conditions around you, from the layered karma of each passing moment, which means there is no solid, immovable self that cannot change, anywhere to be found. Perhaps you are not someone who cannot change. Perhaps changing, always and continuously, is your most natural state. A river doesn't pause to mourn the shape it held yesterday. It simply moves, and in moving, it becomes. When I bring the story of the Four Gates into modern life, I find that most of us have our own versions of those palace walls and our own gates waiting just outside. Let me share one man's story. A man in his 50s retired from a company where he had worked for most of his adult life. Not long after, his father began showing signs of dementia. Every visit, his father had changed a little more. Things he could say yesterday, he could no longer say today. Then came the day his father didn't recognize his own son's face. Standing there in that moment, the man felt something crack open inside him. Will this happen to me too? What have I actually done with my life? These were questions he had never asked seriously before. During his working years, he had found ways not to think about them, or rather the days had been full enough that he never had to. He had been living inside the palace. When his father's aging became his gate, he stepped through it for the first time and began quietly to face his own karma, the choices he had made, the ones he hadn't. Here's another story. A woman in her 30s was deeply wounded by someone she had trusted for years. It felt like betrayal. The anger and grief that followed lasted not months, but years. This is their fault. They are the one who needs to reckon with this. She held on to that for a long time, but one day something quietly shifted. She noticed, I am still the one carrying this. The other person may have moved on long ago, and yet here I am still unable to set down what happened that day. Maybe the suffering hadn't come from being betrayed. Maybe it had come from the belief that this must never happen. A belief so tightly held that she still couldn't let it go. That belief had been quietly extending her pain. Clearing karma doesn't mean changing the other person. It means asking in this moment, what am I willing to release? What do I choose now? The path only appears there. One more. People who are caring for aging parents sometimes say this, I wish I had done more for them sooner. The regret about the past makes the present heavier. But here is what's true. The act of sitting beside your parent today, of holding their hand, of saying their name, that karma can be built right now, today. Buddhism says don't chase the past, but it doesn't say ignore it either. The karma of the past has shaped the conditions of today. Seeing that clearly, and then asking what you choose in this moment, that is what it means to walk forward. And I want to be honest with you, beginning to walk doesn't mean everything changes at once. That's Buddhism being truthful with you. The woman who finally saw what she was carrying didn't wake up the next morning free of it. She still reached for the old anger sometimes, out of habit. The way you reach for a light switch in a room you've lived in for years, even after the bulb has burned out. But she noticed herself reaching, and that noticing was the beginning. So, if there were one small thing you could try today, what might it be? The first, give yourself 1 minute tonight to look back at your day. Before you sleep, sit quietly and let the day pass before you. What did you do with your body today? What did you say? What did you carry in your mind? You don't need to judge any of it, just look. I was sharp with someone today. I spent most of the day irritated. I actually managed to thank someone today. Just looking, that's all. Among the practices the Buddha shared with his students, one is called right mindfulness, being aware in this moment of what is happening. Noticing without looking away. It sounds difficult, but 1 quiet minute before sleep, simply watching the day you just lived, is a gentle doorway into it. The second, say 1 word out loud. Is there something you meant to say to someone today but didn't? A word of thanks, an apology you've been holding. Whatever it is, even if that person isn't with you right now, try saying it out loud tonight. Just thank you. 1 word. Words are karma. Speaking them aloud sets something in motion. Whether the other person changes, you can't know, but something small inside you might shift. That's enough. Siddhartha began his path the day he left the palace, but the beginning of his journey wasn't dramatic. It started with seeing, and then 1 step. Deep transformation tends to arrive quietly, on the far side of small, repeated moments of awareness. What these 1 minute and 1 word will bring, I can't promise you, but something in how you see things may begin very slowly to change. A monk I once heard of kept a single smooth stone in his pocket for 30 years, not as a relic, not as a charm, but simply to remind him each time his hand found it, to notice where he was. He never spoke of great awakenings. He spoke only of the stone, and the hand, and the returning. What was your gate today? Somewhere in your ordinary day, was there a moment you wanted to look away from? Something that made you feel uneasy, or unsettled, or just a little too seen? That discomfort might be a quiet question, meant only for you. You don't need to rush toward an answer. Just let the question rest in your chest tonight, gently, for a little while. A farmer doesn't tear open the soil the moment he plants a seed. He walks away, trusts the darkness, and returns when it is time. Maybe you can do the same tonight. Set down the shovel, leave the field, let the unseen work begin. The monk Ryokan once lost his sandal in a storm and spent 3 days looking for it, only to find it waiting on his own doorstep. Sometimes what we seek is already resting quietly in the place we keep returning to. Siddhartha didn't leave the palace to run away. He left because he wanted to see what had been kept from him. We aren't so different. We each live inside our own palace, the walls built from busyness, from habit, from the quiet reassurance of not yet. I'll think about that later. Behind those walls, Aging and illness and death remain safely out of sight. Things that happen to other people. Somewhere else. But the moment we step through the gate, they become our story. The shaking you feel in that moment isn't weakness. It's the beginning of seeing. Clearing karma doesn't mean erasing the past. It means turning your attention to now, to what you choose today, to how you look at the life in front of you. That's all it is. The fact that you're here listening to this today, that too is a kind of connection, a small piece of the web that brought you to this moment. What this will plant inside you, I don't know. Maybe something stirs quickly. Maybe it takes root slowly, quietly, over a long time. Either way, tonight, if only for tonight, let yourself look just a little beyond the walls. Not to solve anything, not to arrive anywhere, just to see what is actually there. The way Siddhartha saw the old man on the road, not as a problem to fix, but as a truth he could finally stop pretending away. That quiet looking, even once, even briefly, is already the path. And sometimes that's enough. One real look, one moment when the wall becomes thin. A woman once told me she'd spent 40 years afraid to visit her mother's grave, and then one autumn afternoon she simply went, stood there in the cold, and felt nothing collapse the way she'd feared. She drove home and made dinner, but something had shifted, quietly, the way a door swings open without a sound. Pause. May today's words quietly take root within you. One story a day. In a week, your words will change. In a month, your eyes will change. In a year, the same world will look completely different.